Welcome back, everybody, to Not Qualified Podcast. I'm Joe, and with me here is Zeph. Today we're going to talk about Star Wars, but just the sequels.
Yeah, which seems weird that we're just going to talk about the sequels. But the reason I said that is because...
Bro, that's dusty. That's nasty,
I know,
man.
I kicked the mic away. Sorry about that. That is disgusting. I need to dust. Okay. No, the reason I said the sequel specifically is because I think it would be... I think it's a good way... I think we have, at this point in our lives, the most to say about the sequels. I mean, that's not true. We have the most to say about the original trilogy, of course. But I mean, like... The sequels are fresh on our mind, and they expose what's wrong, kind of, like things we don't like about where Star Wars has gone, which will lead us into what we love about Star Wars in general. And we'll do more episodes on Star Wars in the future. But yeah, so I think we're going to focus specifically on the sequels, what worked or what didn't work, and that kind of thing. Ooh, satisfying. So, okay, so Star Wars is very special to both of us.
Yeah.
As it is to pretty much every person in America at this point. But we both grew up on it. I watched the VHS tapes of the original trilogy over and over again, wore them to death. And they hold a special place in my heart. We also, obviously, I watched the prequels. I saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters, actually, which is kind of cool. It's the only one I got to see in theaters. And I love Star Wars. It's a huge part of my life. I have bucket loads of Star Wars knowledge in my brain that I can't do anything with, except share it on a podcast. So I'm glad we're doing this.
So until Rise of Skywalker came out, it was even. But you saw that one in theaters. So now you have seen more than half of them in theaters at this point. Because the only ones you didn't see were the first 5 in theaters.
Oh, interesting.
And you saw the last...
You're counting Rogue One and Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird. That makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, feel how you want. I like the sequels. I like Star Wars. Yeah. I'm a shill. I don't love them. I mean, like, I love them. I'm not, like, in love with them. Mm-hmm. There are things I obviously think are wrong with them, as I do with all of them, except for the first 2 in Revenge of the Sith. No, just the first 2.
The funny thing about Star Wars is it's the only franchise where you can be a fan of and hate all the movies. Like the only perfect Star Wars movies that I don't have anything bad to say about are the first 2, are New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And after that, it goes up and down all over the place. But I still love every movie in the series, even with its flaws.
I've gotten into the habit whenever it comes to... Man, it's just Disney properties now, because they just own everything. When I watch something like the Marvel universe, or even like the DC universe, or Star Wars, I just kind of get passive about it, right? I go into the movie and have a passive experience where I just watch it. I'm like, that's really interesting. Oh, I like the lightsaber fight. That was really fun. Yeah. Oh, there's horses on the plane. That's a lot of fun. I don't know. I just have fun watching them, and then it's not until like my second viewing I'm like, well, that's
you notice the
really
things.
Stupid.
Yes. I will say that my first... So as a kid, I grew up watching the prequels, which now I watch them, and boy, there are some issues. I didn't think of those or notice them as a kid watching them. Even the politics of Phantom Menace interested me as a kid. But so because I watched this so young, I didn't have any problems with them. I will say the first experience I had of disappointment with Star Wars, well, unless you're counting video game properties and TV shows and all this, the first moment of disappointment of any level of disappointment I had was coming out of the theater after The Last Jedi. You, me, and Noah saw that together, and what was funny is my original the way I originally felt about The Last Jedi, none of the things that I dislike about it now were what I thought at the beginning. I just thought it was relatively boring for a Star Wars movie. Like, not a lot happened. It all took place within the span of like a day. And I was underwhelmed, and it felt weird to me. It didn't feel like a Star Wars movie. And so I remember feeling that. But I think the sequels exposed something very weird about Star Wars, which is that apparently you have a bunch of people, millions and millions of people who love this franchise, and each one of them thinks Star Wars should be or is something completely different.
Yeah.
Which was exposed by The Last Jedi. The absolute divisiveness of that movie and how it was politicized, and then that just compounded with Rise of Skywalker. Like they were inverses of each other. Last Jedi was loved by critics and review bombed by fans, and then Rise of Skywalker seems to have a better fan response, but critics hated it.
Yeah. And
people just fight about it still.
Yes. And we've talked about this. Everybody's talked about this. I actually don't know that I've seen very many people talk about this like on a video. I think I've only heard just me, you, and people who I talk with talk about this one specific thing, where the issue lies with the sequels, and it's really just the sequels that deal with this problem, is that there was no overarching cohesiveness to
yes.
it. There was no one person who wrote, this is what we're going to do with this trilogy. This is the story we got to follow. Here's how we get from point A to point B. And I'm going to let you direct how you think that middle part should look. This is the story. You get to say how it looks and what shots you want in it. But this is what's going to happen. And that's how the original trilogy was with George Lucas and Irving Kershner and the other guy.
Richard Marquand or whatever.
That guy. And then it was just George Lucas on the prequels,
right? But that's the difference, is that the previous two trilogies had a single brain behind them.
Yes.
George Lucas's brain, controlling where things went.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, that's what you'd have with the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But you didn't. It's okay having different people direct it. That's what happened with the original trilogy.
Yeah.
But you need one person controlling the narrative and the story, and that is not what happened. You get Force Awakens, which played it safe, was kind of a rehash of A New Hope, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I love Force Awakens.
Really
It played off my nostalgia, sure, but that's what I want. I'm a shill. I don't care. It was great. I love Force Awakens, and I thought it was just a well-made movie. J.J. Abrams, love him or hate him, I think he's a really talented director, and he knows what people want.
Yeah.
And Force Awakens was awesome. It's my favorite of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But then they didn't just give Episode 8 to a new director. They gave that director script privileges. So he also wrote, you know what I mean? Mm. When Rian Johnson came in, he was in complete control. He had the reins, and he could make the story go wherever he wanted. Yeah. And so they happened to have given the story over to somebody who didn't like where J.J. Abrams wanted to go, and completely abandon all those plot points that J.J. had set up. And then when J.J. comes back for Episode 9, he doesn't like where Rian Johnson has gone, and so he goes back to what he originally planned and tried to cram it all into one movie. Yeah. And so then it feels like a weird back and forth game of petty.
It's spiteful
squabbles.
Hot potato.
It's spiteful hot potato. That's what the sequel trilogy is. And I like each movie in the sequel trilogy just fine, but as a cohesive narrative, it completely falls apart because it feels spiteful. It feels like they were made by two different people who did not get along.
Yeah. It would literally,
It would be like if the Beatles broke up and Paul McCartney and George had a band called B, and John Lennon and Ringo had a band called To Less, and then every song was about the other person, which I guess that kind of happened with just their solo careers, but still, you know what I mean? It's like if you're a fan and you like all the four of them, then who do you listen to? You'll feel guilty listening to either one because they're hating on each other. It's just weird.
And it's not just. And again, I liked them a lot. And that's just like the childhood nostalgia shill in me that's like,
yes, I
lightsaber fights. Anakin still, Luke's still alive, right? I get to watch Mark Hamill act.
I loved Rise of Skywalker. I loved Darth Sidious coming back. I loved him hamming it up. I loved just everything. I loved the absolute nostalgia play. Yeah. And it made me, like every movie, it made me cry. But it made me cry for nostalgic reasons. Yeah. And I really liked it.
Yeah. And The fan service was a lot, but I loved it still.
Except for the chewy metal thing.
The chewy metal thing I think is so
It's
dumb.
a bit much.
But whatever. I'm going to move past that. And I think they were definitely working with very specific things that like kind of made it difficult. The actors are aging and they're breaking legs and they're dying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like, well, we got to include them in different capacities. We got to work around this. But then you have really dumb stuff, like in The Last Jedi specifically. I'm just gonna crap on this movie, man. I liked the movie. I really enjoyed it.
I liked
some of the routes they took with it.
but I also hated a lot of it.
But then you have really dumb choices, like Rose, the woman who works for a resistance, telling the child soldier why war is bad on a casino planet. He knows.
It was dumb.
He knows.
And it was also dumb to even write her in as a character when they could have just had it be Poe, which was the original plan.
Yeah.
But also, that movie, I think that's where things started to fall apart. Like I said, Force Awakens, I didn't have any complaints with. I thought it was great. It made me excited for Star Wars again and where things could go. But Last Jedi is where things fell apart because you've got you're trying to introduce too many things in the middle movie of a trilogy, and Ryan, of course, the classic. He wanted to subvert your expectations, and he did that. But I don't know that Star Wars is necessarily a franchise where I want my expectations subverted.
No, I agree. No, and it worked really well. Spoiler alert for Empire Strikes Back. If you haven't seen it, I don't care anymore. Just watch it already. And if this spoils it, it's your fault. That movie's what, 40 years old?
Are you about to say that Darth Vader is Luke's father?
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone doesn't know that.
I don't know either, but for whatever reason that was a spoiler to you, I don't care.
Okay.
That was a good subversion. There was a story he wanted to tell in those 3 movies. Oh, big reveal. Turns out the bad guy is the main guy's dad. All right? That was really the only time it ever happened in that trilogy of a subversion of expectations.
Yeah.
And then you have this. The second movie did it again in the third trilogy of hey, we're going to subvert everybody's expectations. We're going to reveal things. Crazy things are going on. Whoa, wackadoodle. It turns out they make out in the end, and there was a love thing going on.
Well, and that was the second, because the second movie tells you the subversion is, you expect her to be somebody's daughter, but Rey's actually nobody. And then the third movie says, no, that's stupid. She is somebody's daughter. And it's the bad guy from the last trilogy.
Had they just stuck to something, I would have been okay with it.
Just stick to one story, even if it's bad. I would be okay with it. And it just was weird. They didn't. Why did Kathleen Kennedy not mastermind it? Why didn't they just stick to George Lucas's original outline? And
what kind of blows my mind about this thing, anyways, is that when Lucas was ahead of it all, right, and he had corporations under him at the time, like he had worked up like Lucasfilms and LucasArts and Industrial Light and Magic and Skywalker Sound. Like he's built industries off of just one set of movies, right? Industrial Light and Magic and Skywalker Sound do movies all across Hollywood now because they're that good at it, and I don't know, whatever. And then the Mouse gets their hands on it. This massive corporation.
Yep.
Worth billions. They acquired this property for $4 billion. Billion dollars with a B. $4 billion. And they said, let's just have some people take care of it.
They literally put the least amount of effort or care in to preserving the legacy of Star Wars, which is like the most important franchise in American history. And they just haphazardly handled it like they didn't care. Yeah. They played spiteful hot potato with it.
Yeah, they said, that Abrams guy, he did a great job on the Star Trek movies. He makes some good sci-fis. Let's throw him into the mix. He's a good director. And then for the second one, they were like...
The guy that made Brick
and Looper... He makes.
I will say, I love Rian Johnson.
Yeah,
I think
like
he's a great
Rian
director.
Johnson. I think he's a great director. He makes great stories.
Yes, Breaking Bad, Knives Out was the best movie probably of 2019.
Yes, I agree.
Anyway, I love Rian Johnson, but I think the direction he went with Last Jedi was dumb. It was like the amount of subverting expectations in places I don't want my expectations to be subverted.
Yeah,
it's like, imagine if you're watching Lord of the Rings and you get to Return of the King, right? And it's the very end of the movie, at the coronation of Aragorn, right? This wonderful moment they've been waiting hundreds of years for the king to return to Gondor and unite the men of the West.
Yeah.
And then he says, actually, monarchy is immoral. I'm going to go ahead and turn that down and dissolve the dissolve the state into a few smaller sub-kingdoms, and then create a parliament so that we can be ruled democratically. And everybody says, what are you talking about?
Yeah, everybody goes,
That's what I felt like watching Last Jedi.
Credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. And it's just an executive fault for this whole thing.
This trilogy was made by a boardroom, like a corporate.
And it's no. I don't think it's any fault of the directors per se. Like, they were given something and they were like, okay, we got to do this with that. This is what I want to happen. Here, you take it over. And they're like, well, I don't really like that.
Yeah.
And I know you wrote a treatment for this next movie. Like, you have an outline you want me to follow. Throws it away. Here's what I want to do with it. And then, from what I heard, Abrams had liked the Last Jedi script, but like as a story within a trilogy, it's hard to follow that up with setting up a bunch of things and then going, hey, I don't like any of that, get rid of it,
and wrap it up at the same time.
What do you think about that? And then going, well, now I have to make sense of the mess that we both made.
And I want to stress, I still love the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all getting good reviews from me. I enjoy them. I will buy, I like them. And I don't want to just crap on Rian Johnson, because J.J. Abrams with Rise of Skywalker did some things too that I was like, why would you introduce that? Yeah. Why would you have horses on a plane? Why would you introduce new force powers? Why would you have a whole new group of people and subplots that you don't need when you should just be focusing on wrapping up loose ends? I don't know, man. But I think I liked Rise of Skywalker a lot better than Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Still, I don't know. I don't know. I like them all. One thing I will say is that I think that the spin-offs, Rogue One and Solo, are better than any of the sequel movies.
I'll agree with you on there. Yeah.
Maybe not Solo, but Rogue One, I will say, is
Rogue One for sure.
Rogue One's better than any of the sequel movies.
I think Solo is better than the second two sequel movies.
Yeah, okay.
I like Solo as like a fun heist movie. They didn't need it. We don't need any of these. They're all unnecessary. You should just watch the first two over and over again.
Yeah.
And then the third one on special events. But it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I think if they're going to give me stuff that I didn't ask for, I might as well watch it and develop opinion about it.
Yeah.
And I liked Solo. I thought it was a fun little story. Yeah. And here I am now. Yep.
I will say that in the entire Star Wars franchise, Attack of the Clones is by far the worst movie.
I agree. Which is unfortunate, because the first act of that movie rocks.
First third of it is awesome. And then the rest of it is the worst.
Yeah, it actually sucks.
But I'm saying that to give perspective that I even like that movie.
Yeah.
So I'm not complaining about these sequel movies as in I think they're bad movies. I'm complaining about they could have been so much better.
Yeah.
So much better. But it was just a lack of care by Disney that let them be what they are. I also, it's funny, I think that every actor in the entire sequel trilogy is awesome. There's not a moment of bad performance.
I agree.
In all three movies.
And I don't want to be one of those people that's just going to crap on actors because you don't like the character, right? I didn't like Kelly Marie Tran's character. I hated Rose.
Right.
Everybody hates Rose. But she's a great actress.
Yes, she's a good
actress. And
she
did the character well.
It was just poorly written.
It was just a poorly written character.
She did the best she could with
She deserves no hate as a person because she did what she was paid to do. But she did it well.
But that character is the worst. It's worse than Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, it was. And he didn't deserve that either.
No, he didn't deserve that either.
And neither did Jake Lloyd.
Poor Jake Lloyd. Rest in peace. Jingle all the way. He's jingling all the way somewhere else.
In prison, man.
Yeah, he's alive, right?
Yeah, and he also has schizophrenia.
Oh, well, now I still feel bad. Wow. Yeah, so anyway, it's a mess. But I think what's going to happen to me in the future, I'm not going to show my kids these movies. Not at first. I'm going to raise them on the original trilogy, and then when they turn 11 or 12, I will introduce them to the prequel trilogy. So they're still young enough to enjoy the prequels, maybe 9 or 10.
Yeah.
They're still young enough that they like the prequels and they are able to enjoy them, but the thing that's cemented in them is the original trilogy. And then, when they're like 17, I will mention, there's these other... They made other sequels later. Different people, they didn't follow anything, but they made these movies.
Yeah.
And then I'll let them watch them and develop their own opinion.
I would love for that opportunity in my own life. I would. But here's the thing. They're not going to stop making these movies.
No, they're
and these
not.
kids are going to grow up with Star Wars movies in the theaters. And they're going to be like,
oh, man, you're
Dad,
right. It's so
Dad,
sad.
why didn't you tell us that they're making new movies? And you're going to be like, kiddo, there are so many more that I'd never even told you about. And they're going to go, what? And I'm going to say, you're going to say, we're both going to say, I'm not going to watch them with you.
No.
Get over it, kiddo.
I think Rise of Skywalker tied up me emotionally.
Yeah.
I loved the end of Rise of Skywalker. I think it was emotionally satisfying. Like when all the Jedi come back, and speak in Rey's ear and she beats Darth Sidious.
Yeah,
Say what you will about that movie, but I think it emotionally wrapped things up.
Yeah, Abrams did a great job. I know the fan service was kind of out the wazoo on that movie, but I liked it. Because he had to wrap up 9 movies,
and he
did the best that he could with what he had. And the whole Jedi thing actually, that's another one of those moments where I'm like, oh great, this is cool. I'm gonna cry around people. This is neat. Like
cry in a dark room with 40 other people.
Yeah, and you hear all the voices of Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen and even Ashley Eckert from the Clone Wars and Mace Windu. You have Samuel Jackson's voice. You have all these voices. Liam Neeson was back for that. Like, they have all these voices they're going to just throw in there for you. Freddie Prinze Jr. from Rebels. They brought his character, Kanan Jarrus.
I haven't watched Rebels.
Why? They just like that. I don't know. I think he really went out for that. But not only just the movies, for every Star Wars fan. Just to sum up everything and give that to you. And just be like, here, I made this for you. I love you guys. That was nice.
Rise of Skywalker did for me what Endgame did for me. As in, it emotionally satisfied me.
I thought you were going to compare it to something that I had done. I was like, oh, no, it was just a different experience you also had.
Oh, wait, what were you talking about?
You said, it did for me what this also did for me. I was like, I don't know, I just expected
it
else.
just like, I should say, Rise of Skywalker is to Star Wars for me what Endgame is to Marvel for me.
Okay.
Like,
okay, yeah.
Like, it emotionally satisfied a franchise. I'll probably watch more entries in the future, but I'm not going to care.
That's true.
I'm not going to care at all. I'm going to be detached. We'll go into these movies like a Buddhist. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, but I am not going to be attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
Because this was the end for me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And what's really annoying about the whole Star Wars situation is that they have so much extra media. Like, I spent a month straight watching Clone Wars and Rebels just to be caught up, just so I could watch The Mandalorian. And I'm like, I'm going to have to keep staying up to date every time they release something, just so the next time something comes out, I'm up to date on that. That's annoying, man. I don't like that. I hate all the time I have to spend doing this. And then I'm going to die. And guess what? I'm never going to be fully caught up. They're going to be in the middle of releasing something. And I'm like, I'm never going to get to see the next episode of that because I have brain cancer and I'm going to die. And then they're just going to keep releasing movies. And I'm going to be in heaven going, I wonder what happened to that next Star Wars movie.
Yeah. That's why from here on out, I'm only reading books released before 1690. No movies, no TV. Everything we review from here on out is going to be written by someone who would hate me. That way I don't have more things to catch up on. I have a cap.
Yeah. Do we want to give scores to the individual movies?
Sure. I will have to think about it.
Yeah.
Force Awakens.
I'll give it a 20. No, it deserves more than that. I'll give it 13.
I'll give mine a 10. Force Awakens at 10 for me.
Last Jedi, just as a movie, individually scored. I'll give that a 30.
Yeah, I guess I'll give Last Jedi like a 34. And
then Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker, I will give a 26.
Say a 22.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So there's our rankings for those.
There's our rankings for those
Rogue One.
movies. Rogue One. Oh, we're gonna do those. Rogue One I liked a lot actually.
Yes. Rogue One I'll give a 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably give that like an 8.
And then Solo.
I'll give a 17.
I'll give it a 22.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yep. There's that.
Yeah, if there's one person I can blame for all this, it's
it's it's who? Who were you gonna say? Did you want me to tell you? Were you waiting on my answer? I don't know, man. See you next time.
Kathleen Kennedy.